All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the minutes of May 24th, 2016 are approved. We have two appeals tonight, and we'll start off with appeal number 16-002. It's for Amy Connolly, Slats Enterprise, Inc., of 8519, 8547 Macomb Street, Island Shops, is before the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance to expand the parking lot that encroaches into the front yard setback of lot number 101 of Supervisors Grosse-Ile subdivision, as recorded in Wayne County Records, Township of Grosse-Ile, County of Wayne, Michigan, also known as 8519 Macomb Street. What we'll do here, who's going to be representing the Amy Connolly Slats Enterprise? Okay. You want to come up and introduce yourself, and then what we'll do is we'll have Brian come and give us an overview of the project, and then you can give your presentation. Okay? So give us your name and who you represent and how where you live. Okay? Okay, that's good. Thank you. Now you can sit down and we'll have Brian come.
Now it's on. All right. You already kind of hit all my intro points, but here's our subject site. Map is looking towards the south, so north is down. Petitioner seeking tonight variances. There are two variances, but they're both interrelated, tied to an expansion of their existing parking lot into this area right here, if you can follow that mouse cursor right there. So I think we all know where the site is. Island Shops, pretty familiar place. The zoning is Macomb Street District in this instance, and the provisions of Article 7, which regulate uses, design, standards for all of Macomb Street District, are found within that article. Here's just a quick overview of a portion of the site plan. I could not get the whole thing to fit, so I scanned just the portion that was applicable. So these are the new parking spaces. What's happening is there's a landscape, of course. There's a landscape island right there. Where? Thank you. So landscape island right here, if you can follow that cursor. And then there's a green belt across the front of the property. So what they're proposing to do is remove this island and then cut into this green belt for what would be an increase in total of 6 parking spaces. So they gain 4 new spaces essentially along the front lot line, and then they would gain 2 new spaces with the removal of the landscape island, again, located right here immediately across from this building. I can't remember the tenant name in that. I think Hungry Howie's is in this building over here. So the issue that we're dealing with really is twofold tonight. Within the Macomb Street provisions, there is a prohibition on front yard parking. The ordinance requires side or rear yard parking. So in this case, we're dealing with a yard placement issue. So I view that as variance 1. In addition, there is a minimum front yard parking setback of 25 feet for parking lots. So what we've got is yard placement, and then we have a setback encroachment. The petitioner did revise their plans to pull these spaces back a little bit from the original submittal. So there's a 3.5 foot. Thank you, Lori. For everybody at home, it's really hot in here. Lori just turned the air conditioning on. So what we've got is a 3.5 foot setback that's being proposed. One of the things in sort of the interim process of this review, I did meet with Ms. Connolly and Mr. Stanley, who prepared the survey drawing and the plans, because one of my initial concerns was they had a 1.5 foot front yard setback. And my concern was at that point then we have vehicle overhang that's going to be into the right of way. And I don't want to mess with rights of way at all. I want to make sure that whatever we're doing is going to stay within the realm of the private property. So they did manage to sort of shift the drive aisle and provide depths that matched your ordinance standards and gain that extra 2 feet, which I think was actually a pretty important move. So this way, at least it's all on site. Obviously, it's still a variance. It's still a pretty significant variance, but at least we've mitigated that potential scenario of having an overhang into the public right-of-way. So those are our 2 ordinance standards of why we're here. Right side of my screen is the standards you were to apply. Present these every time to you. This is how my review letter is outlined, point by point, 1 through 14. So rather than go point by point, 1 through 14, I'll just give you kind of a quick overview. So again, petitioners here for 2 variances tonight. There are no changes proposed to the actual buildings themselves. This is strictly a parking lot expansion. That's why we are here. In terms of some of the ordinance standards, strict compliance will not prevent continued use of this property. There's nothing precluding the continued commercial operation of the site in the absence of these 6 new parking spaces. And as such, per that first practical difficulty requirement in your ordinance, if it does not prevent you from using the property, you must demonstrate that it is unnecessarily burdensome. That's the exact phrase in your ordinance. So that is a task I would put upon the petitioner, is that they will need to present you with really an explanation of why the regulations are burdensome to them. Another comment based on what's presented in the submittal, we did not have parking calculations. So I don't have an actual count of the parking that's required by ordinance. I tried to figure it out in my review letter based on the best information I had. I believe that came out to roughly 53 parking spaces, but given there's no actual counts or calculations on the submittal, and if you look at the site plan drawing, which I know I only got the excerpt on here, the rear of the site is where all the parking is, but it's not striped or shown on the plan. So I don't have the ability to count how many spaces are there. The reason I go through all that is I was trying to determine whether or not the site is short on parking. If the site is short on parking, I think we have one conversation. If the site already has the sufficient amount of parking, at least the minimum required by your ordinance, I think it's a little more difficult to meet the test for substantial justice and the preservation of property rights as to why these variances are justified when in fact they already have enough parking. But again, I don't have the answer for that. I'm kind of hoping we'll get that out of the petitioner tonight. In terms of the property itself, it's about 1.5 acre parcel based on the information provided. It is, I believe, perfectly rectangular in shape. And in terms of the extraordinary circumstance regulation or requirement, I don't really see anything unique about the property that would help support or justify the 2 variances that are sought. In terms of neighborhood character, there are a handful of properties on Macomb Street. Macomb Street's kind of a mixed bag. There's obviously some older development. There's some newer development. The trend has been to get away from front yard parking, but obviously there's still a number of non-residential properties that do have front yard parking, including some of the properties in the immediate vicinity. At least based on drives up and down Macomb Street, review of aerial photos, doesn't really jump out at me that a lot of that front yard parking is as close as, say, 3.5 feet to the front lot line. So this does seem like maybe it's a little bit closer. But again, as far as that character goes, it certainly is a condition that exists elsewhere on Macomb Street. And in closing, to just kind of lump together a number of the other standards, we don't really see a reason why approval would create a safety hazard, generate any of the nuisance-like conditions noted in your ordinance, impact land values, supply of light and air, traffic flow, etc. I really don't think it has much of an impact on a number of those standards. However, back to my original points, I guess sort of in summary, I think there's potentially some concerns with the practical difficulty standard, the unique circumstance standard, as well as the substantial justice test, which is a test for fairness amongst property owners in the district. In other words, is this owner being denied a right that somebody else generally would have because of a condition of their property? And based on the submittal, I personally have not seen substantial documentation or evidence that tells me that they have. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Brian, thank you.
Question, can you put back up the aerial view of the rear parking lot?
Blow it up.
Is it possible to blow it up?
No. Do you want me to try to count them?
Yeah, because you can see striping in this area.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing, too, I guess I should have noted, was we did go to the site, and the striping is
But it's
gone.
not there now. I
Right.
readily agree, but if you,
Well, I've parked back there many times, and I remember when it was striped, so,
Sure.
yeah.
and I don't have any way of knowing when this aerial was taken.
Yeah, correct. I mean, I guess that's part of it, too, is whether this is it's probably an accurate reflection, because my guess is the paint's just worn off over time. So, yeah. But again, this is something not to. I'm not trying to be critical of the petitioner, but I've asked for parking calculations in 3 different review letters, and I asked for them in a face-to-face meeting. So to me, it's incumbent on the applicant to provide that information. It's not up to us to figure it out for them. So that's, I guess, where I'll leave that one.
You know, when they built this, constructed this, the parking lot, they had to have information on how many parking spaces was in the back. Nobody asked for that? Didn't? Well, it's available. I know it's available.
It would really depend on what the township had on file. Whether they still have that site plan from the original approval or not, I couldn't tell you.
Okay. Okay. Well, is that it, Brian?
Yeah,
Are there any other questions?
Yes. On item 12 in your write-up, you talk about the vegetation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I read this wrong, but 7.3E2 requires a green belt.
Correct.
Does it not? Talk about shrubs or about what that width should be to get a arborvitae or a retaining wall or something?
I believe we could probably get a hedgerow within the 3.5 feet. What would probably happen is it would be on their property, and we might want to talk to Wayne County, because if it grows as it grows in, it might encroach. Typically, I can't speak for the county, typically landscaping, they're okay with landscape sort of overhang into a right-of-way. But I certainly, if we were going to go like the knee wall route or something, that would need to be wholly within their property. That Wayne County probably isn't going to allow a structure within there. But yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, because I kind of glossed. I really didn't include that in what I presented, but I do think that's an important one. If you are going to consider approval, I do think that there needs to be some screening tied to granting of a variance to reduce that setback, such that we don't have issues, with headlights shining across the street.
Yeah, well, that's what I read in your report.
Thanks, Gary. No, that was a good point.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, yeah, we'll have Amy come up. Amy, come up and before you start, I just want to say thank you for investing in the Macomb Street. I mean, we need a lot of help along Macomb Street, so thank you for
thank you
for doing that.
Well, it's our pleasure. My family's been a part of this community for over 25 years now, so most of us live here, and not only professionally but personally, this is our home, and we just need to continue to do what we can to make this community what we believe it can be.
Well, thanks for that.
Oh, again, our pleasure.
Okay, so you want to go ahead and give us your reasons for why you want to add 6 parking spaces.
Absolutely, and it doesn't seem like much, but here's our line of thinking. We have 10 properties on Macomb Street. none of which we've ever had any issue with filling. We're so proud to say that all of our residential, all of our commercial properties, they remain full. We maintain our properties. We're proud of them. We like to think we bring business to the island when we can. That's exactly what we're trying to do here. We are new owners of this property. We just purchased it within the last year. So we know that we've got some hurdles that we're trying to overcome. We have 2 vacancies right now in this property. They've been vacant for, my understanding, a very long time. We just received word that the yoga studio in the back building, they've purchased a building off the island. They're going to be leaving us with 2 more vacancies. We have to do something. We can't just sit by and wait for someone to want to come in and invest in this island if we don't give them a good reason to. You've had the opportunity to review our request and what we're trying to accomplish here. I'm hoping to maybe help you understand why. As a community, we've seen businesses, restaurants, retail in this location come and go. It doesn't last. We've asked our tenants that are in place, we've asked our commercial realtor, we've asked other business owners, we've asked all of our tenants what they feel the biggest problem over there is. It's a beautiful buildings. It's in a great location on Macomb Street. By and large, the response is the parking doesn't make sense. Anybody who's ever tried to go in and pick up a pizza at Hungry Howie's knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's not convenient. Yes, there is a parking lot in the back of the building, and I apologize that it is not properly striped. That is actually part of the project that we're working through right now. Depending on where we go with this project, we have 3 companies on standby to completely patch, reseal, and restripe the entire lot. We just need to know where we're going with the front lot. So that's why that's been put on hold for now. To my best calculations, there's 50-ish parking spots in the back. Again, they're rather faded, so it was my best guess. Let's see. We've been talking with our realtor. We've been talking with families that have moved to the island. We're trying to decide what this island needs. We need a frozen yogurt shop. We need a taekwondo studio. We need something for our young families. We need a burger place. Unless we can increase the accessibility to a certain number of those units, we cannot entice these businesses to come here. We already have a challenge with the size of our community. That none of us would change. We love the fact that we live in this very small town. Unfortunately, we want some of the amenities that come along with a bigger town. I ride my bike down to Macomb Street with my family, and after 8 o'clock, there's nothing to do. We go and we get a slush, and then we walk up and down the street. We're trying to make that better. But again, until we can provide specifically our vacant units right now, they are up in the front of that property. There are 3 buildings, as you can see in the drawing there, or in the photo. Those front spaces, yes, you can access them from that back lot. It is not convenient. Yes, people might walk up to the front of this property, but it's very difficult to convince a business owner of that they are going to have their loyal followers park in the back and walk up front. So we feel that not only would we be helping Hungry Howie's, which is a franchise, something we don't see very often on our island, and we're trying to support them as well. Obviously, being their new landlord, we want to help their business, and we want them to succeed. I spoke with the owner of that Hungry Howie's again today, and he reiterated that if he had a little more storefront parking, that it would greatly enhance his business. He struggles, and while he's not threatening to go anywhere, the walk-in business is tough for him. Those small spots up front really don't help him. So again, what we're seeking is to add 5 or 6 spots right up front so someone can come in, park, get their pizza, get their frozen yogurt, take their kid to dance, then pull on out and be on their way. We understand the need for the landscaping. We completely understand the setback that's set forth in the zoning ordinance. We understand how important the curb appeal is up and down our business district. There's an awful lot of green space we have in front of that building. If we were to reduce just that small portion and add those 5 or 6 parking places, We don't feel that it is negatively impacting the curb appeal of that building or that property at all. In fact, the 3.5 feet that we have from the sidewalk, we are more than willing, more than happy to add a row of boxwoods, shrubs of any kind, whatever it takes. We don't want to upset the neighbors. We, on the contrary, want them to be happy about what we're doing, about bringing something new to the community and breathing a little life into this property that they are looking at on a day-to-day basis. And driving up and down Macomb Street, I counted 15 properties that also have their parking that comes up to the sidewalk. Most of them park sideways and not up, facing Macomb Street, but there are several that do that. Not a reason to grant us the variance, but I think that it will help us to blend in. I don't think it's going to look out of place. I don't think it's going to negatively impact our business district at all. I think we're all worried about the future of our business district on this island. We've seen way too many commercial buildings, businesses close their doors. We feel we have a responsibility as this company that owns so many properties on Macomb Street to actually do something. We're involved with the DDA. We are so happy and thrilled to see Angela Sikokis has been brought on to direct the DDA. We're excited about the possibilities, and we want to be ready and prepared for the businesses that she brings to the island. We want to have a place for them to go. We want to be ready. I guess I understand that an inconvenience of this parking in the back isn't demonstrating a hardship. I understand that, but another vacant, empty storefront on Macomb Street is, and we now are looking at 4 at this property. And we can't change the position of the buildings. We can't change. The only thing we can change is adding more parking and making it more accessible for any businesses that might come our way. Thank you for considering this, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions from the board?
I have questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. First of all, businesses on Macomb have had a terrible time. I've lived here 40 years. They come and go at great regularity because we don't have enough population to support, or who don't support this community and their merchants. Okay, that has been a historic problem. But I have a couple of questions. You said that you're going to have 2 more vacancies, and I don't know how much this project is going to cost you, but it occurs to me that perhaps concessions could be made to Hungry Howie's to have them move their business to the back, because that way the parking is there. I mean, there's a lot of parking back there.
I believe it's within his franchise agreement that he has to have visibility from Macomb Street. That's why he's there. He has the Hungry Howie sign across the building, and he has to be there on Macomb Street. I think that's been a problem with any franchise, getting them to Macomb Street over the years. We've attempted with Papa John's, we've attempted Subway, and again, they need to be right on Macomb Street.
Well, franchises generally have a population base that requires them, that they are required to have before they can move to a
That's
community, correct? Mm-hmm. We don't really meet that criteria.
Yet here they are, thank goodness.
Here they are. By the same token, I don't know what I have been there. I have certainly been there when it's crowded and seen people jockeying for position, but I don't see the difference in having to drive to the back where there is so much parking. That lot is almost always empty.
Well, and I guess it depends on what time of day you're there as well, because that dance studio is, and thank goodness that dance studio is there, and she has a very, very large client base. Thank goodness. Does. And there are times of day when that parking lot is full. Thank goodness. And again, we're happy for that. But I think we're specifically targeting those 2 vacant spaces. Again, the one next to Hungry Howie's and the one across the walkway there. We have it in our mind. We brainstorm every day about what we think will go well there, what our community needs, what our young families need. Again, I think a frozen yogurt place would be amazing, especially if you don't bring in a franchise. The overhead isn't astronomical. You've got a family that can whip in, go in there, get their frozen yogurt, come on out, and they've got the storefront parking. To convince a business owner that doesn't have that storefront parking, it's a really tough argument to make. We've tried, and we continue to try, and we will continue to try, should your answer be no today, but all we want to do is enhance our property and make it more desirable.
I just have a hard time with, in a community that's playing Pokemon Go to get kids more active, why we would be trying to make people walk even less.
We have kids too, and we're not willing to give up quite yet.
Anyway, I just think there's a lot of parking.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and any other questions?
Do I understand this is for Hungry Howie's exclusively, or is this for
No.
multiple businesses?
No, sir. Anyone can park there, but fortunately, because the property is spread out the way that it is, the dance studio primarily uses the back, and then we will target those 2 new vacancies where the yoga studio was and where they parked. That will be where they park as well. So
This may impact Hungry Howie's as far as coming to get a pizza. People park there for some other reason.
Well, it could. They certainly won't be any worse off than they are now. I think that I don't imagine that it's going to be any long-term parking that's going to be up there again. If we've got some irons in the fire as far as some potential businesses there. Something like a frozen yogurt, you're not going to be there any longer than 10, 15, 20 minutes tops. So it's going to just provide that much more accessibility to people.
Any other questions?
Amy, I can certainly sympathize with what you're saying. I've many times come there to pick up a pizza. I could use exercise, yeah, but I get mad if I can't park right up front, leave the car running, go and get the pizza and get the hell out of there. So I understand what you're saying, even though I sympathize with Jackie's need for exercise. I want to park right there, get it, and get the hell out.
We want to add the convenience that a business owner is looking for. They don't want to have one more hurdle when they're opening up a business. We're just trying to make it as easy as possible for them.
Right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, on your drawing, revised plan of 16 and a half tall and 18 and a half.
That's correct.
You want to, Mr. Stanley, you want to come up and address that? Give your name, address, who you are.
Hi, I'm Todd Stanley, office at 9505 Grow. Yeah, we went 16 and a half foot with a 2-foot overhang. Ryan said that's feasible. We wanted to get a couple more feet off of the right of way.
So you're putting a new 7-foot sidewalk in. That sidewalk exists?
The one along the building,
Yeah.
we're going to keep what's there already. It's a ramp.
It's actually just mulched area right now. Right. So you're
There's no sidewalk there.
that is
No,
correct.
no.
No, so you could get by with a 5-foot sidewalk?
I'm sorry. You're requesting that we put in a sidewalk?
Along the side of the building?
Instead of 7 feet, it could be 5. Correct.
Oh yeah, we could pick up that 5 feet if that's what you're saying.
You could pick up a little more if you wanted.
Yeah.
And then on the side of the building, that wrap around there,
Yeah.
no sidewalk.
That is landscaping. Yep. Yeah, that's landscaping.
Here.
It's really not landscaping, it's just kind of a mulched area, natural.
Under the new drawing, telling me that's landscape.
Yeah, on the east side of the building.
But the extension of that is concrete?
Um,
How do I know?
well, you got my word on it.
Okay? And people park along that.
They can, but they don't.
They do.
Do they?
Yes. They did this week, the 2 days I was there, so.
So we're seeing like an overflowing of a need to park.
So if you got rid of what you're calling a landscape area,
Yeah.
I think if you played with the geometry on this, pick up at least 4 and possibly 5 spaces without getting into Greenwood.
You're talking about on the east side of the building,
I'm talking the whole area.
right in front,
Yep.
and we've already thought of that.
If
you
you
know, but
did that, you could save money because you wouldn't be increasing your runoff area.
Mm-hmm.
So you wouldn't have to. Up to you.
Great idea.
I believe that piece of property, the piece of land there has the buildings or the businesses that are inside the businesses that are currently on.
Correct.
So you'd have to move that if you were.
The sign would stay the same. The lighting would stay the same. The storm catch basin would remain the same. It's a 24-inch. It serves that asphaltic area. And with my calculations, if you added 4 spaces in the front, it wouldn't really burden that huge pipe, huge diameter pipe, with a rain event. We decided with our layout just mostly for convenience, because I mean I've been there a million times for lunch, and it's, although I've seen people park all over the place, it's, once you come in, there's 3 guys waiting or 3 people waiting, and then there's 3 people coming in, and then there's the guy delivering the pizza, and he's running around the way they do. And so we just thought that would be a good idea to add some in the front to make it more convenient. Since it's a fast food place, it's not a Paradino's where you kind of walk up to it and sit down. You know they're going to be there for 2 hours or whatever. And yeah, there is possibilities. There could be parallel parking on the side, etc. But then you're still kind of pushing yourself further away too. And I just, my thinking, I think it's very convenient the way we have it.
Okay. Do you have any other questions? Yeah. The project as you got it laid out now, what is it costing you to do this? You know?
I do. We've got several different bids. It's going to cost us several $1,000s. It's not astronomical. It's a doable project.
So several thousand. I mean, I'm looking at it, and that's kind of minimum, right?
We've gotten 3 different bids. They're anywhere from $3,500 up to about $5,500.
55. Yeah, right. Okay. And then if Mr. Bailey's recommendation, he's talking about cutting the cost back of his proposal. His proposal says it's going to cost less, which I see that it probably will. Mm-hmm. Are you considering that?
We'll consider anything, but I guess I'm confused as to I understand if we remove the bump out there, that I'm imagining at some point they had a tree there, which is no longer there. If we remove that, you're freeing up 2 spots there. But I'm confused as to, on the east side of the building, where people park along that landscape side, they're not supposed to, but they do. I'm confused as to what your recommendation was there.
I don't have a, it could be done differently, and you could say, not necessarily on that side of the building, in the front.
The trade-off is basically you're going to walk a little farther, probably. That's the access is not going to be immediate to Hungry Howie's. So, are there any other questions from the board?
Will there be something to?
Well, absolutely. That's what we were talking about, doing a row of boxwoods or absolutely something. Again, we don't want to be a nuisance to anybody. What we're trying to do is a positive enhancement to the property.
Okay, do we have, I'm going to ask for any comments from the audience, if we have anybody who wants to come up and speak to to this project. Do we have anyone in the audience? give your name and address?
Yes, John Harwood, 8499 Thorntree. I'm a broker with NAI Farman. And another part of that project is that right next to Hungry Howie's is there a vacant space where it used to be Motivation. I don't know how many people remember. So that's the other spot that becomes almost, not impossible at least, but it's very tough because even if you have your employees park in the back, you'd also need some space for, for some of your customers, depending on what type of business. But so adding some space there is also a great benefit to possibly leasing that spot. To throw that out. But as everybody knows, and as you mentioned, in the stuff that we do, parking is always one of the obstacles that you face and why people move from a location to a different location. Obviously, many other things too, a number of traffic and so forth. But you definitely do need, for any building, usually some quick accessible parking, even if it's 15-minute parking or something where places have carry out if it is that type of a thing where there's a restaurant or so forth. So I just wanted to say that I, as a resident, having lived here too, would support it just from that standpoint, because I've also went in for pizza or whatever. It's just a hard turnaround if there's just a few people in there. Even if you never added a parking space, it wasn't laid out very well originally. And I know that's not the issue being discussed now, but for the future, I think it could enhance it, the piece, by adding some parking to it. Anybody has any questions, that's it for me. But
So are you considering doing anything there?
We're working at, we're a commercial brokerage up in Southfield, but I'm a longtime Grosse Ile resident, and just working at getting tenants and so forth on the island. So in your opinion, giving short-term parking, is that a big inducement? Absolutely. I mean, you have to have some parking where people can pull right up. If like you say, convincing somebody that's the actual tenant that's going to lease the space to take over a space, there's very few times where they want parking far away from a thing. Now, if it's an office where, possibly you had, but even if let's say you did an attorney office or anything, you still want a couple spots for your clients, your employees. It's easier to have them park in the back. But you've also got population aging. You have a lot of different aspects that you have to take into consideration. So I would think, yes, definitely it's an inducement for sure to anybody. I mean, now whether that's not going to say that you're going to get, maybe a client that's never going to consider that piece anyways if it didn't have it. But there are definitely some pieces that would consider it that wouldn't consider it today probably. Because as it stands right now, really, there's just just parking for the one space for the Hungry Howie, which is very minimal at that. So if you're asking me if my opinion would be definitely it benefits the piece. I don't know if what the hindrance would be or what the obstacle. I mean, obviously, I want to see the island, anything that's would help beautify it or anything, but I don't see where that would harm that, I guess, as far as, in my opinion.
So beautification as opposed to available parking spaces, they don't add up.
Well, I mean, because you're saying you're kidding, still keep some green belt there. Like I say, you're not eliminating all of the green space, but. No, I'm not. I'm just saying. You're asking if my opinion of it, if it would help the part. I'm just saying in that aspect, I would say that obviously additional parking would be a plus. So.
Yeah, our intent is to make sure that there are no violations of the ordinance. That's why we're here.
Sure.
And but we also want to support the investors on Macomb Street.
So trying to figure out the best way to obviously have everything work. So
yeah.
But some way, whether it's laid out exactly like that or some other type of thing. Obviously, if there's any way to add some space there, it's definitely. It would definitely help a little bit to possibly get that spot occupied or so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other comments from the audience? Hearing none, do we have any comments from the board? Do we have anything before we request a motion? Okay, hearing none, can we have somebody give us a motion?
I have one.
Okay.
I move that
Okay, we have support for the motion. Any comments?
Sure, some comments. So I do agree. I think there may in this case be ample parking, but I think in my opinion, the value of recruitment and retention into this office space or whatever the space may be used for is definitely critical for the development of Macomb. And I think the applicant here does prove that a space contiguous to Hungry Howie's or adjacent to it would benefit from a few incremental spaces. And I think part of our balance we have to kind of weigh as a group is does that present enough of a undue burden to approve something or not? And for me, I think that retention recruitment definitely does weigh for me very heavily.
Argument isn't whether they can they have to violate the ordinance to gain those.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, hearing none, can we have a vote?
I do have one other comment. When I went to the property, it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there was 0 cars in the southern lot. Adding these spaces north side of the property probably only helps one store there, and that would be the one across from Hungry Howie's. I'm not sure what they had there. It used to be, I think, a aerobic center. Curves. Okay. And it just seems odd that there's no cars there in the afternoon. I'm concerned that the condition of the lot, the parking spaces in the front, more people there.
Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, I would just like to support the notion that there is no harm in approving this, which I can see we're headed to rejecting it, but this is good for business on Macomb Street. It's not going to hurt anything, and I would certainly support the comments made previously in that regard. Even though I can see this is not going to get approved, I would think it's good for business.
Any other comments?
Unfortunately, I think we're focusing too much on the business profile or the business for this district and not on our board role here on what they have to show us to seek these variances. And I think it's a mere inconvenience that the property is laid out that way and the tenant, unfortunately, cannot use the property to the best of their ability. But as the practical difficulties variance review for us says, that's not enough. So I think we're missing the boat here in talking about enhancing the business and enhancing Macomb when that's not our job here as a zoning board. Our job here as a zoning board is to go over these 14 standards, and if the applicant can convince us that those 14 standards have been met or some of them have been met, then we should consider granting the variance. And I don't think they've established that any of those have been met other than the business aspect for the property. That's my only comment.
Okay, I feel that that the project hasn't been given due consideration to alternatives. I mean, there is another way of doing this and meeting the ordinance. So my feeling is that that has to be explored. So given that, I think we should take a vote. All in favor?
Well, repeat the motion.
Unnecessary. Already.
So now are we understood? Okay, so can we now have the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Opposed.
So we have two in opposition and the rest in favor. So the motion passes. The appeal has been denied. Thank you. Okay, are we ready for the next appeal?
The light has to be on before we can hear him, especially the guy in the beard over there. A couple of them are having trouble.
Okay, we have appeal number 16-003. This is for Michael Walsh of 7949 Church. Is before the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance to construct a new single-family residence that does not meet the front yard setback on lot number 119 and 120, Supervisors Grosse Ile, sub number 8, as recorded in Wayne County Records, Township of Grosse Ile, County of Wayne, Michigan, also known as 7949 Church. Okay, the person who's going to, are you the person that's appealing?
Yes, sir. I'm Michael
Can you give
Walsh.
us your name and address?
Michael Walsh, 7593 Macomb, Grosse Ile.
Okay, so what we're going to do is follow the same format we did the prior one. So we're going to have Brian come up here and give us an overview, and then you can come up and give us your reason why you're going to do what you're doing. Okay? You can sit down there.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Ted came over to give me just a quick reminder. Make sure that your green light is on your microphones when you're speaking, and do your best to speak into the microphone itself. It's difficult at times, I know. Actually, this thing raised and lowered, but regardless, a little friendly reminder so they can hear us at home. So, again, thank you for the intro, Mr. Chair. So the site we're dealing with on our second case is 7949 Church. Again, I've oriented this so that north is down, south is up. Try to keep you guys on your toes sometimes. So this is our subject site right here. Petitioner is seeking a single variance, which would be from the front yard setback requirements of the R1B district. Applicable ordinance section is 3.5, which provides the dimensional requirements for the single-family residential districts. Here's a look at the site plan as proposed. So we have the lot. We have proposed residence, existing garage to remain, and then here's this big evergreen tree just to give you a point of reference. Oh shoot! Actually, the reformatting of you guys, Ted, you guys need to upgrade your PowerPoint. You have an old version. It is. No.
Wrong house.
This is our guy right here.
Yeah, that's
there's
the wrong house.
There's that big tree. This is the formatting when you use the wrong version of PowerPoint.
Do the best you can, Brian.
No, it's fair. It's this guy right here. That's that big evergreen tree.
House.
Again. Any house. Lots of houses. So again, existing garage, proposed residence, and you can see there is an existing residence there as well. There is an existing conditions plan in your packet that you can look at as well. And here's a quick elevation view of the proposed front of the house. It is a ranch single floor residence, approximately 1,500 square feet. Existing residence approximately 1,200 square feet. It is on the small side in terms of your ordinance requirements, but it does meet the minimum requirements for residents in the R1B district. So that's one point to bring up, but again, it is relatively small. So in terms, again, of our ordinance provisions tonight that I want you to focus on, 3.5 regulates front yard setbacks for principal buildings in R1B. It's a 40-foot minimum requirement. New residence proposed is at approximately 28 feet. The existing residence, let's go back to that for a second as I mess with you again and pick which house it is. The existing residence is at, it's right at about 28 feet as well. I believe it was 27.8. roughly. It's an existing non-conforming building. There are provisions in the ordinance, more specifically Chapter 18, Section 18.6, that do grant the owners of non-conforming buildings certain rights. They do have rights to make some improvements to the residence. They have the right to make some safety and or modernization type repairs to the residence. However, in this case, they cannot expand the residence without a variance. So this petitioner is in a position where, and again, we're going to have a little dialogue with him tonight as well, but he's in a position where essentially it's his belief that removing the residence as opposed to trying to modernize or improve the existing residence is the right path, or even attempting to expand, in which case he would still be in front of you tonight for a single variance, but it would be a slightly different variance. 23.5B, same standards, 1 through 14. So, brief summary, again, we're dealing with 28-foot front yard setback proposed. Ordinance standard is 40-foot. The residence does meet all of the other dimensional standards for the district. They're good on their coverages, side yards are good, rear yards good, and the spacing from, when you look at the proposed plan, they took careful consideration to maintain the 10-foot spacing in order to retain that existing detached accessory building. So that would also be compliant as well. In terms of the current residence, I've already mentioned it's not conforming due to deficient front yard setback. In terms of our requirements, strict compliance, as I mentioned, he has non-conforming rights to continue use of the property, makes some slight modifications, so compliance will not prevent use of the property or continued use of the property. As I mentioned, it won't even prevent further improvement, albeit limited improvement. It would conversely prohibit expansion. He would be here for an expansion were that his choice. This really, to me, falls into the burdensome category. Again, I believe it's up to the petitioner to demonstrate to you why the ordinance restrictions are being unnecessarily burdensome, since obviously he's not being prevented or precluded use of the property. On to the property. Property itself is not conforming for two reasons. It is deficient in its lot width. It's a 65-foot wide lot. R1B minimum is an 80-foot lot, so they're a little shy there, quite a bit actually. And then in terms of lot area, this is approximately 14,000 square foot lot, and R1B is a 16,000 square foot district. So this is a smaller and narrower R1B lot. So certainly there are some conditions present here that could be used to potentially support some amount of variance. With that being said, I did pose a few different options to the petitioner, getting back to our line of thinking of what are some alternatives to granting of a variance. The first really ties into those standards of 18.6 that I referenced earlier that would allow him to make some improvements, some modernization, potentially some safety-related repairs. If the home is in really poor condition, your ordinance allows an applicant to improve the residence by up to 50% of its value, which in some instances could be quite a bit of money that you could put into the house. So I think that's one thing that we need to at least explore, we need to at least have some conversation with. And the second part of that is that as part of this project, it's the intent to demolish the existing residence, at which point he wants to retain the garage, to which I have to at least raise the question of why not just demolish both and then build one compliant residence, and at which point I believe there's still sufficient rear yard area, could construct another detached accessory building. It is relatively narrow, so I'm not sure whether or not there's enough width to get an attached garage. So this may be one of those lots where detached is the way he'll just have to go. And that's something he's proposing to keep anyway. But again, I have to at least approach the question, because we're not for that garage. If we were not retaining that, then we could push the residence back that extra 12 feet and we could build it right at that 40-foot line. It's really, as I mentioned, it's this spacing that is dictating the front placement of that proposed residence. So again, just another item I at least want the petitioner to address to your satisfaction before you were going to consider any type of approval here. And then again, sort of my last kind of catch-all, I really don't believe there's any issues here with public safety. I don't believe it will disturb neighborhood character, albeit it is closer to the front lot line. If you look up and down this particular roadway, there's actually a number of homes that have greatly deficient front yard setbacks. So I didn't necessarily believe there's an issue with neighborhood character. Because it's a front yard setback, I don't see an issue with light and air. We're not pushing something up to a side lot line. We'll still maintain proper spacing between residences. So we're not cramming in something that's too big that's going to affect the neighborhood per se. But again, per ordinance, it is too close to the front lot line. So that being said, I'll just leave it at that. Happy to take any questions, Mr. Chair.
Question?
There's a shed back there.
That's still there?
Yeah.
Another detached building back there?
Well, anything down, but that's not a problem.
Fair enough, Mr. Chair. Getting to Board Member Bailey's point, so if there, it's not shown on the plan. I didn't see it. I didn't look closely enough at the existing plan. So I would certainly encourage you. Something this board has always done is via the ZBA review process, we've tried to eliminate or reduce nonconformity where we can. So this would be an instance where if you were to grant the variance request, it would be certainly worthwhile to consider a condition that the smaller shed would have to be removed because you can only have one detached accessory building. So that second one becomes its own nonconformity.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. Oh, excellent point. Excellent point.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well understood.
Sure.
Another question?
Yeah, I have a question, Brian. I didn't look into this until you brought, but since you brought the issue up of alternative of taking the garage down and moving everything, basically sliding it further deep in the building envelope, how far back could the existing garage, which is 32.3 and by 24.3, how far back could that go?
Yeah, actually,
another variance.
Yeah, so principal buildings have a 40-foot rear yard setback. Detached accessory buildings can be as close as 6 feet to a side or rear lot line in residential districts. So theoretically, and this is still a 220-foot deep lot, I believe there's ample room to rebuild a new detached and a compliant home. But again, it would require demolition of both structures to get there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Brian. Okay, Michael, you can come up and give us your thoughts on why we should approve your appeal.
All right, I bought the house with the intention of maybe trying to rehab it. It's not possible as I keep looking at it. I've brought pictures and other stuff from people that have looked at it to show you. It's only like it's a 2-bedroom house with the bathroom right next to the kitchen. There's just no way to remodel this thing to make it feasible. And the house I want to build there is for my son and I. We're living now on Macomb. I just recently got divorced, so I bought it thinking that I'll build a house for him and I there because we're living in an apartment building I own on Macomb. To address the house, I'll show you that it needs to come down. But the garage issue, there's nothing wrong with the garage whatsoever. I mean, the garage was built 10 years ago. It's perfect concrete. Everything in the garage is perfect. It's cost-wise, this garage is almost an 800-foot garage that's there. And I don't mind taking the shed down back there because you got the storage in the garage, but I don't see any sense in taking down it's up to you guys, but I don't see any sense taking down the garage when there's nothing wrong with the garage. And the house I'm going to build there is going to be 3-bedroom, 2-bath, open floor plan. I built the house before in Gibraltar. And it's really a nice little house. So I think it would fit really nice in there and really improve, what's there now, because the house that's there now, I've also brought a little article on that, was probably built in 1865, and they got an article on it from back in the 80s or so on the house. And if you don't mind, I'll pass these pictures out.
Yep, fine.
To the house to just a proposal. That. It's crazy because if you look now, it is, but it's the other pictures you'll see. But
It's totally different.
yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. And this was all. I would have left it like that. They might have.
You're going to have to change the concrete, because it says here the concrete slope to the garage.
Yeah, well, I'm going to replace. I got my driveway. Here's what happened. The county came through there and cut this tree down next door. I don't know if you heard about it. What they did when they were taking parcels was they stocked it all, put it all in my front yard before the house. Rocked a huge section and busted the highway up. So
I saw that. I did see that.
They dropped a tree trunk on it.
Wow.
To break it.
I saw that.
So they offered me like $2,000 to repair it, rather than have them send out a crew. So they're gonna, but once I tear the house down, concrete's gonna have to go anyways, because once Pro Excavating drives their machines and stuff across there, so I'm gonna redo the concrete all the way back to the existing.
I can't believe that's the same house.
Yeah, I know, it looks different.
It's totally different.
Yeah. Porches, I don't know why they moved the porch from one side to the other.
Mr. Chair, if I may, and I apologize for the interruption, the mics aren't picking up any of this. Mr. Walsh, if you could maybe return to the
okay.
You're providing some good description and explanation.
I was blocking the TV.
But the
Okay,
mics,
I'm
the mics
sorry.
are not picking
Should have
it
pushed
up.
you back there, Michael.
That's right.
Thank you.
Is there a plaque, a historical plaque on this building?
No,
you know?
they had a thing done for the real estate, and there's no historical designation. I guess if they would have left the vinyl siding off of it, because it used to be that clapboard siding,
Yeah.
they originally left it in that shape. Maybe they could have done something with. But they changed the windows. They put
Yeah, there's a lot of changes.
new vinyl windows in. They put the siding on. So I think that kind of inside though there is the from the Sibley Gardens. They have the old fireplace, and I guess there's original Sibley Gardens. I didn't know that, but this is a really old fireplace that's in there. But it's you can't use it. It's not one that you use. It's like a decoration one, but it's like it's probably built the same time the house was built. There. So I'm going to keep that.
Okay, so
I thought about going over and asking him. Hey,
now, Michael,
put this in there.
I'd like to move this along now. Okay, tell us why you think that we should approve the stuff that you want to do with the house. You want to put a new house in, so tell us why.
Well, I think that for me to go in and do all the remodeling and stuff on the house, I'm really not going to have any house there. I mean, like, as far as to go in and try to change the bathrooms, the bedrooms, the floors, to tear all the floors out, put the piers and stuff in, going to cost me a lot of money. So it'd be a lot different to do just to put that money into building a new house. And then, I've lived on Grosse Hill for 37 years plus, and unfortunately, I have a nice house on Horse Mill, but I'm not in there anymore. So I wanted to be close to my son, who's 15 now, be close to him, to his mother and that, to go back and forth. And I just want to build a little one-story, house with no basement there, just for him and I.
Okay. Now, you're giving us. You've heard about the ordinance violations.
Yes, sir.
How do you justify those?
Well, like you said, some of the other houses are real close to the sidewalk. In order for me to get this house in there, I need to keep the same setback that I have now, which is like the 28 foot, and then I got enough room between the house and the garage in the back to put this house up.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board?
Just one. Oh, sorry. So your reasoning is that if you putting the house where it is, asking for the variance, allows you to keep the current garage, which is in good shape,
Yes.
and not have to do both.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Not have to tear it down because it's completely fine.
Okay.
House right next door to you has the same setback, and that'll stay there.
Yes.
And the people that are on the western side of your house, the arborvitae is a nice shield.
Right.
So they probably don't, think that it's too bad of a situation to probably rebuild in the same place that the original house was. That's my opinion.
Okay, all right, good.
Any questions?
Yes, please. Yeah, the houses, what is it, 3 to the west? I think he's got a 7-foot setback. I measured it anyways. It's real tight.
Yeah, right.
But did you consider moving the garage?
Well, that was the question, but I'd have to I don't see any reason tearing the garage down or moving it back and trying to. I mean, right now it's like kind of. I know this isn't something to take into consideration for a variance, but part of it is cost-wise. I'm trying to get the house built at a reasonable cost for my son and I, and now I'm probably going to be way above budget what I thought where I was going to be, and to try to move that back and then pour new concrete and new slab. It's almost an 800-foot garage right now. It's 700 some.
Bigger than any, to be quite honest, than any I've ever moved.
Right.
But with a few friends, I've certainly moved them when they were 1.5 car garage, and that's at least a 2.5.
Yeah, 758
if not
square
bigger.
foot.
But I mean,
35 by
just
22.
jacking it up casually, putting it on rollers, and you've only got to gain 12 feet. So that's all the additional concrete you would have to pour. Well, it's just a thought.
Well, and when I get done with it, to leave it that close to the house, I mean, it'll look really nice. I mean, with that, I'll have a 10-foot separation between the house and the garage. And to go through, and again, I know that's not part of the board's, you're going by the variance and stuff that needs to be looked at for the square footage and the setbacks. to me, it just seems like it's a perfectly good garage, and I start moving it and all this other stuff. I don't know what I'm going to do to the walls, the roof. I mean, by the time I get done, I might have to rebuild the whole. I've never done that before, and I don't know, yeah.
Do we have any other questions? I was just thinking, if you take, you got the 10-foot distance between the garage and the house right now, and you expect to maintain that 10-foot, right?
Yes, sir. We're going to maintain it.
What if you just move the house and make it a part of the garage, the garage part of the house, and you got 10? You can pick up 10 foot, and I think, Brian, it's a 90% factor, isn't it? Not on this. So if you have, so you're going to pick up 28 to 38.4. That's what he could do if he did that. If he took the new structure and attached it to the garage.
Yeah, it would have to be
38.4. So when I was reading some of the information, it's 90%. If you meet the 90% of the ordinance,
would not apply in this particular instance. No, that's to expand an existing non-conforming building.
So
you have to meet the 90% rule. In this case, what it would do is that could be viewed, if that is a feasible, reasonable alternative, that could be viewed as an option to decrease the amount of variance being sought.
So it would decrease the
whether the two structures can actually be physically attached and connected, I don't know. Structurally, that becomes a question.
If it is attached, then you actually
we'd be gaining 10 feet. So instead of a 12-foot variance, we're looking at about a 2-foot variance.
You see then remodeling the garage structure rather than the house structure?
I don't know that it matters.
You would be tearing into the garage. I might as well tear the garage. You're going to take half the garage down anyway.
No, you're not taking any part of the garage down, according to Jim, right?
Right. No part of the garage comes.
You would have a common wall.
Yep.
Yeah, but you got to tie your roof line into that line of the garage.
Some things, yes.
Yeah.
But that's not nearly the
then
cost.
You got firewalls and stuff I got to put up too, right, in the garage and all that to tear it out, and it just.
It's more.
Well, you got to meet the fire conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I'm saying it's got to be tied.
But I'm just looking at saying demolish the garage and you build a new garage. That's going to be much more.
Please, I don't want to do that. No.
The house up and tear down the garage.
Yeah, I'll live in the garage. And tear the house down, I guess. Yeah. But, I mean, I'll tear that shed in the back. I didn't get to that. It wasn't on the plan, but I understand you can only have one detached. But that'll be out of there. That line will be all cleaned up. We're going to clean all that up back there. And, I think everybody will be real happy with that house there.
Well, it's going to improve the neighborhood, that's for sure.
I mean, not that that's not a cute little house now, but still, it'll make it look a lot nicer.
Why is there a lock on the door? Has it been deemed to be unsafe, or?
No, that's mine. I put locks on all of them, so I don't, because I have a habit of losing keys.
Okay.
So that way I know the key's there when I get there. I had it cut off.
Yeah,
it has a water pit out front. So yeah, I had the water shut off, gas shut off, and then electric is next.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Do we have anybody in the audience is there anybody that wants, there is no one to give comments? Okay, given that, do we have any other comments from the board before we look for a motion? Okay, can we get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would bring vote within
I will support that with a friendly amendment.
Yep, that's not a problem. I will. Take it down, right? Yeah, I don't move it. I'm going to take it down, right? Yeah.
Okay, can you state your motion there, John?
Vote during this case with the addition of
So you're saying approved? Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Do we have any comments? Hearing no comments, can we vote all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the appeal is approved.
Thank you.
Michael, you can
I appreciate it. Yes,
start
thank you.
going. Thank you. I want to keep this. Can I keep it? Can't believe it. Yeah. Okay, now, do we have any comments, or, Lori, do we have anything going next month? Nothing next month, okay. Any other comments from the board? Hearing none, can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.